take attendance?
Right.
Sure, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Cleary.
Here.
O'Brien and Fine are excused this evening. Bergdorf.
Here.
Tunny.
Here.
Rosano.
Here.
Peter.
Here.
Reinhardt.
Here.
And Smith.
Here.
7 present, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. First, approval of previous minutes.
I make a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Second?
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Pass unanimous. Read number 2.
Sure, Mr. Chairman. Item 2 is authorizing an agreement with Travelers Insurance regarding property insurance coverage for the MPP Arena. Mr. Belber is here this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
This insurance policy is almost identical with a little bit heavier premium than last year. According to Walsh Duffield, who is the county's insurance broker, that gets us the lowest rates from all insurance companies. Some of the bigger storms and wildfires and so forth had a major impact on premiums. So in the past, we've always been able to go to the cab and get approval because it's been under 100,000. And this year, the total amount is just over 100,000. And therefore, it had to go a different direction in order to get approval. Unfortunately, because of the timing, the current policy ends on June 30th. And so we are asking this body, this committee, if it would approve allowing us to go forward and have the policy be bound, with the understanding that normally it takes a full legislature to approve it. But if we don't bind it before June 30th, then there'll be a gap. And I don't want to have the property be uninsured for that gap, even if it's only 2 weeks. According to Eugenia Condon, the county attorney, she felt that that would be sufficient if this body agreed to that.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, we've done this before in a couple instances for sexual violence victims. So it wouldn't be a problem as long as Eugenia just reaches out to us and lets us know.
Okay, okay.
Bill?
I don't really like the fact that we're dealing with a policy that expires in a week.
Yeah, normally we would not do
So
that.
why is that?
It would always
that
be
happen?
backed up a couple of months, but it's always been under 100, and we didn't think it would be over 100. So we didn't push the broker to get us the quotes earlier. We've informed the broker that from here forward, because it's likely that it will be over 100,000, they've got to back that up. So it's not putting you in a time crunch, or all of us in a time crunch the way that it did this time.
Yeah, because you have to come before us and explain.
Yeah.
Why?
And I don't mind explaining, but I'm sorry that you have to hear it this way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna say no, that, it's like, who wants to have MVP without insurance?
Right.
Right. But it's a little frustrating that.
And I agree 100%, and I apologize for the situation we're in.
Yeah. But I do think we should approve it because the alternative is worse.
I was going to say, if everybody's on board, I'd make a motion that we give Bob the permission to work with the county attorney, instruct him to move forward and purchase the insurance as priced. So moved.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 3 is amending the 2023 Department of Public Works budget for a consolidated local street and highway improvement program, otherwise known as CHIPS. Commissioner Raimondo is here this evening.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So this is our annual apportionment from New York State. It's funding for CHIPS, Pave New York, EWR, and POP. We're going to be amending our budget. We currently have approximately $3.5 million in our budget. We start out with that, and we wait for the letter to come to see what our rollover amount is and what our yearly apportionment is. And so I'm requesting that we have the ability to accept the remainder above and beyond the $3.5 million into our budget for use spending on our hauling and placing project, as well as various other highway improvement and building maintenance projects that deal with highway garages.
I make a motion with this.
Can I just ask one question?
Yep.
Sure.
Is the amount been the same for years, or have you noticed it go up, down?
It's gone up a little
going
bit.
up.
So POP is, the first year we were awarded POP money was last year. So we didn't know whether or not that was gonna happen this year, and it was.
Yeah.
So that was awarded. And CHIPS and EWR have gone up a bit in recent years. So of this 8 million, it seems like a lot of money, but about 2 million of it has already been spent, and it just hasn't been reimbursed yet. A lot of it has to do with the rollover. And our hauling and placing project this year is close to 4 million. So with that, the 4 million plus the 2 million, that takes us down to 6. So we're expecting a rollover again next year. But yeah, it has gone up by a bit over $500,000 due to POP.
Well,
Oh, you were gonna
Second.
Second, yeah.
Yeah, I just, one observation, I don't know, you probably can't comment on it, but New York State, after completing a budget, 2 weeks ago, is now talking about a $4.5 billion deficit next year and a $9 billion deficit the year after that. Have these funds made it through the deficit-laden years in the past?
Since my tenure, which is 7 years, they've always made it through.
Okay.
That said, we do like to have a rollover in case there is an issue where there's a lack of funding. Like during COVID, there was a withhold of like 20% of the funding.
Well, I guess that's what I was alluding to.
So
Yeah.
there was a withhold, but then they eventually made it up to us within the same year. So if ever you wonder like why do we keep a rollover, it's like for just in case.
It's your own reserve fund.
Yeah, yep.
we have a motion, do we have a
I
second?
seconded it.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Passes.
Item 4 is authorizing an agreement with D.A. Collins Construction Company, Inc. for the Crumpkill Road Bridge over Normanskill Creek Bridge Rehabilitation Project in the town of New Scotland.
Yep, so we received one bidder, D.A. Collins, for this project. It's rehabilitation of Crumpkill Road over the Normanskill. It's predominantly a bridge painting project with various steel repairs. The amount is $1.138 million, and this is funded with capital plan funding.
First of all, the biggest show in town in Slingerlands right now
Yeah,
is the bridge work.
that is a big show.
And my wife walks the rail trail every day, as does my daughter, and it's like, it's quite a show.
It is.
People, actually, I mean, there was all the talk about what kind of bridge to build and all this in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
But the work is like so impressive for so many people. It's like people line up. I don't know if
Yeah.
you've noticed, because,
Oh, yeah, I was
I know you
there.
live nearby, I
Yeah.
do too, and it's like people are watching. Anyway,
It was
that's
exciting.
very interesting. However, I do want to ask, we have 2 items here where we only had 1 bid.
Yeah,
I remember the Slingerlands Bridge had multiple bids.
yeah.
What's going on? Why are we only getting single bids on these projects? I'm a little
Contract.
concerned that
Yeah.
seems to be happening.
No, it's true. As a matter of fact, yeah, we only got 1 bid for our striping contract, and that 1 bid didn't account for everything that we needed them to account for. So we, in essence, have 0 bids. And when we go back to the contractors, they're short-staffed. It's hard for them to get workers to be able to take on more projects. Things are changing as far as the workforce goes. So, they're taking on as many projects as they can early on in the season, and they don't have time for some of the small stuff. I mean, we've had to actually, after having something out being advertised for a couple of weeks, and we barely get anybody to pick up the bid documents, we call and solicit people and say, hey, did you get this? Do you think you're going to bid on it? So it's, ever since COVID, things have gotten a little different.
And it's labor, it's not materials? It's not the
Um,
supply chain of materials?
So, no, well, for example, what we've tried to do is like for our various bridge deck project, that's the next one I'm going to present, we assume that there could be a delay in getting the materials. So rather than putting a construction completion date of the year it's being bid out, we extend it to the following year, so that can be accounted for in their bid pricing, because we don't know if they're gonna be able to get the material like this year. So, so far, no one has said we're not bidding on it because we can't get the material.
Matt?
Yeah, no, we're noticing that at the Parking Authority and others, where we used to get 4 or 5 bids, we're now getting 1 or 2.
And so like that makes complete sense, especially on anything under 2 mil.
Yeah.
The mobilization costs and the ability to prioritize projects is coming up everywhere. My one question is, how much off was the amount bid versus what was assumed, or how close was it?
Oh, I think in our capital plan, I would have to check. I'm thinking it was below what's in the capital plan. I think we had like 1.5.
Great.
So, yeah, so we were good in that respect.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This may sound like a little bit of heresy, but for these projects over $1 million, we're requiring union bidders, right? When we get to the point where we can only attract one union bidder on multitudes of jobs because of labor that is not available, and there are very significant non-union paving contractors who would have to bid under the general municipal law, who would have to go with the prevailing wage because it's a municipal project. At some point, I'm an open competition person myself, but I think, our biggest enemy is us in this economic times. And I don't expect anybody to say, rah, rah, yeah, let's get more competition by opening it up to non-union bidders. But I gotta put it out there, folks, is we're probably, as a paving season goes on and as a construction season goes on, we're giving millions of dollars away. And when you tell me it's because there isn't enough labor for people to staff jobs, bid jobs, and mobilize accordingly, and it's not the materials, and it's not for want of people wanting work. I've said this before, and people have taken issue with it, 80% of the construction industry is non-union. So, by definition, we are precluding 80% of the construction industry and then ending up with one bidder. So, I think we need to take a hard look at this policy, and I'm not suggesting scrapping anything, but when you have something like this with one bidder, maybe we should have a second bid where the bid gets opened up. I don't know what the procurement answer is, but I don't like these single bids either. And there's also some skullduggery can happen with that within people in the industry.
Right.
So, and that has happened in other places, and there have been, federal charges and all sorts of things, generally to do with Davis-Bacon projects, federal paving projects. So, I'm going to support this, but I don't know, other people on the committee, I'm not looking to put you on the spot, but is this something that we can even consider to try to create some sort of a safety valve to open up competition?
That's a big question, but I happen to think unions created the middle class, and I like to see a middle class, and I don't like to see it go away, so don't ask me to go away from unions.
I would also say that this came in under what we thought it was, so it wasn't like it was driving up the price and things of that nature, which was sort of part of what you just said. And I get it, but I'm also.
But Matt, if there were competition, it might have been $300,000 lower.
I can say that, I'm seeing this at, the public authority I work at has prevailing wage, we're not required to all be union, and we're seeing less bids, and we're seeing highs and lows from all of those folks. So I think you're concluding things that aren't necessarily together.
Well, I work for a construction agency where there in certain markets, it was 100% union, and in other markets, it was 50-50, and in other markets, it was 20% union and 80% non-union, and we bid all of them differently, depending on what the client wanted. But I'm just putting it out there, so,
Until I see that we're getting no bids or it's going completely over and things of that nature, I wouldn't consider.
So we have to wait until the boat sinks before we,
Instead of
before we
assuming
plug a
something's a
hole.
cause
Yeah.
without seeing the
Okay.
effects.
Yeah, no, I mean, just put it out there.
I mean, I also don't, when I'm on a boat, I don't just sit in the lifeboat assuming it's gonna crash. But you might, I like to enjoy the ride.
I thought you might have been on the Titan. I don't know.
Although I do
Yeah.
do like your word of skullduggery.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. The county procurement policy does not require the bidders to be union. It requires, in accordance with the general municipal law, for the bidders to have apprenticeship programs.
Yeah.
And there's no requirement that to have an apprenticeship program, that you have to be a union shop. So I just want to note that under the general municipal laws, how we operate, and it doesn't require unions. The benefit of an apprenticeship
Wow.
program is that you're training the workforce. And as Commissioner Raimondo pointed out, one of the problems is the workforce doesn't exist. So I think the path that Albany County currently is
If
taking
you-
is pretty sound.
I understand what you're saying, but I also am aware of very large shopping centers that pave with non-union paving companies and do hundreds of thousands of feet of paving, and they have a trained and professional workforce as well, whether or not they have a union-sponsored internship program. But I'm just putting it out there, that's all.
I make a motion to move this.
I'll second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 7-0. Thank you.
Item 5 is authorizing an agreement with James H. Malloy, Inc. for various bridge deck replacements and minor repair work at 3 bridge sites in the town of New Scotland.
And before we go, we'll note the things that we said in the last one. For this one, we don't need to repeat it, I don't think.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, so James Malloy was the sole bidder on this project. It is 100% county funded in an amount of $896,000. We're going to be replacing bridge decks and doing various other repairs to 3 bridges in the town of New Scotland. And this did come in under budget.
Thank you.
I make a motion.
I have a motion,
Second.
a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Pass 7-0. Thank you.
Commissioner,
Motion to adjourn?
how's the Waterloo
Motion to
Chamber
adjourn?
Road project? Is that on schedule?
It's on schedule, but use will help have.
I didn't expect you to jump.
Oh, really? But I'm just curious.
So
I did.
it was-
But you're happy with it? Is that moving
So
in?
far, so good.
Good.
But
I,
we're waiting.
I didn't want to accuse anybody.
And get those poles out of there?
I want there are 3 big projects.
We have a motion to
You make
adjourn.
it.
We have a second.
I'll bid on
All in
that.
favor?
Aye.
Against? Thank you.
And